sort of problem with the bike, right? I'm not too sure if Derek has got a wet setup, so that might be he's gone out and had a look at the circuit and decided that it's not worth the risk. I know David May was potentially not going to be on grid because he hasn't got wet tyres at the moment. He just bought the bike and bought the setup, so he's not fully kitted up for that. So did suggest maybe he could go out for a sighting lap effectively, and if it didn't feel nice, just pull in on the dry tyres. But it looks like he's decided to stay and watch this one from the pit wall, perhaps.
Safe option there as they do leave the line. They're in towards Redgate now, racing down Hollywood, but there was quite a few gaps on the grid there, so we'll try and pick them out as they go down the Caranas in towards the old hairpin. We can pick them up on the cameras here actually, and everybody filtering their way through pretty much single file there all the way towards the rear of the field, but everybody through safely at the moment in these initial stages. Of course, this will be a 7-lap race still as we go through Starkey's and on towards Schwantz, but is that 1, 2, 3, 4, a bit of a breakaway for their slight gap between 4th and 5th position, but nothing too dramatic as they make their way in towards Schwantz. Was that Mark Haig there up in the 3rd place, I believe, on the 110? He was 2nd on the grid, so may have dropped the position there. Paul Whitby, what's Paul like in these conditions?
Yeah, I think Paul's a very, very experienced rider. He's very safe, and I think now he's got the wet bike setup. I think it's a bit softer. We were backing something off on the rear suspension earlier, so I think in his head he's going to feel comfortable. Obviously, the track conditions look like they have sort of stabilised and may even start to dry up in places, as you said, with the wind. How he'll then feel on that bike, wet tyres on a drying track, I'm not too sure.
Trying to pick up the numbers here, and that is certainly David Ball ahead of Mark Haig in 2nd and 3rd position as they go in towards Melbourne Loop. Not quite as hard on the brakes as what they were earlier on. We can see Kev Marshall just losing a position further down the order there around about the mid-pack. But that is Alan Cooper leading the way ahead of Ball, then it's Mark Haig, Alan Bushell ahead of McRae, then Paul Whitby in 6th place ahead of Tom Ridley, who is the first of the Clubmans, I suspect.
I mean, is it? Yeah, potentially, yes. Mark Haig will be ahead of the Clubmans, but is it me, or am I missing Kev Woolley?
Kev Woolley, it didn't seem as though there was a pole position man there, so Kev Woolley not coming across the line. The top 9 are across the line now. Paul Neild is in 9th place. There goes the number 57 of Jeff Moog, Patterson through, Marshall through, Pearson in 13th place ahead of Colvin Turner. So it seems that we're missing from this one May, Halil, Cripps, Bailey, Collins and Wimble, but yeah, no Kev Woolley on the timing screen.
Yeah, that's interesting. I know they've got a wet bike in their setup, so I'm not too sure what's happened there. Unless I don't know, unless Alan's out on it. Obviously he's the guy chasing the championship and Kev's here just for giggles, so maybe that's what they've done.
Could well be the case. It's a retirement up towards Redgate there as well, towards the rear of the field. Maybe Adam Collins there from a distance. The number 77 machine, we'll get confirmation of that on the sector times when they don't go through, when the rest of the riders do. But that's where we are at the moment with our race leader. So purple in the first sector there for Alan Cooper. He extends the race lead on this first sector on lap number 2 of 7, but in fact purple goes to Paul Neild, 4th of the Clubmans and 9th place overall. Paul Neild quickest in the first sector.
Yeah, that's pretty good. As I was mentioning, I think yesterday was 2nd in the Rookie Championship last year, so he's still kind of learning his trade. Obviously he's been to all the tracks now, so they're familiar with, he's got that building block of the circuit knowledge. So yeah, maybe he's got the right tyre choice, who knows.
Paul Whitby there just losing a few positions on Max McRae and Tom Ridley in front, and it seems as though Paul Neild, he's through on Damien Lee and he's through on Paul Whitby as well as the sun starts to make its way out from behind the clouds, and that will just mean that the track will dry out that little bit quicker there. And Mark Haig on David Ball around the outside as well as they go in towards Goddard. Alan Bushell trying to follow suit, but it's all very close there, isn't it, in the battle for 2nd place. But Alan Cooper at the moment has got a quite healthy advantage.
Yeah, it is, and Alan Bushell, he won that wet race at Snetterton, or sort of semi-wet race at Snetterton at the end of the meeting last time out. So he'll be feeling confidence here today on his setup. But again, I'm not too sure what he will have taken to grid. So maybe if he's made a call and he's got dry tyres in, just not sure from here.
Well, it is still windy out there. We can see the trees on the infield there between ourselves and the old hairpin. And like I said, the sun's coming out as well, so this track will dry out relatively quickly as well. As race leader Alan Cooper, bike number 30, with a 1 minute 54.192. He has an advantage now of 3.2 seconds. Colvin Turner coming across the line, looking down at his machine. It's 2 minutes 16.3 on that lap for Colvin Turner. But Cooper, Haig, Bushell, Ball and McRae is the top 5 at the moment. Just to confirm that Collins did not come across the line, so the 77 of Adam Collins did retire back to the paddock, but we're into the second sector now, and it's purple in sector number 2 once again for Paul Neal. He's feeling this one.
He definitely is. He's saying that sector of the track, right? Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how far he can sort of push through. How far behind is he?
So he's 5.7 behind the lead, but he's only 0.3 of a second behind McRae as they came across the line 1 lap ago.
Yeah, this is a good ride from the young guy.
So it's still got David Ball in front of him there, but he's ahead of Tom Ridley as they make the way out of the chicane and in towards the Melbourne Loop. Alan Cooper, Mark Haig and Alan Bushell, that is still the order. The gap between Haig and Bushell was less than 0.2 of a second, and it's still less than 0.2 of a second as they get the power down out of the loop and into Goddard's now. Alan Bushell late on the brakes there, trying to go the long way around as 1, 2, 3. Oh, it's difficult to tell there. That was certainly Tom Ridley in the battle for 5th place, who's now ahead of Neil Ball and then Damien Lee. Max McRae lost a few positions on that lap there. He's dropped 3 down into 8th place.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if the track is drying and starting to feel dry, the wet tyres, and depending on which tyres they've got, the Bridgestone W1s, they really need the track to be wet. They will start to feel like the bike is weaving under heavy braking, certainly into sections where you're going to need that into Redgate, down into the loop. You know, it's going to start to feel unsettling, and you know, you can tell by the lap times you're 10 seconds off from earlier on, was it? So obviously the track conditions are still sketchy for the riders, but it could be a combination of damp patches and also the tyres that they've got on the bike.
It doesn't do much for the confidence, does it? As Tom Ridley does a 1 minute 52.090 on that previous lap. So Tom Ridley, 3rd in the Clubman's at the moment there. He is the fastest man on the circuit as Mark Haig goes purple in sector number 2. But that is quickly bettered by Tom Ridley, who is closing the gap there. The gap between him and Alan Bushell for 3rd and 4th is 2 seconds, but he's gone purple in sector number 1, and that's to say that the gap could well be less than 2 seconds now as we come down the back straight once again into the chicane. But everybody in the top 7 going personal best in this first sector.
Yeah, so Tom Ridley, I've mentioned him before, he's the rookie of the class, probably the only rookie out there at the moment. He's chosen to jump straight into the Clubman Championship. I think he got 3rd in that wet race at Snetterton. So he is definitely a good rider. He's really taken to this naturally. So I'm sure he'll be really enjoying these conditions out there. It's certainly suiting with the moment. And if he can make a few more steps forward and end up on the podium, that'll be another brilliant result.
Well, he's going the right way about it at the moment. Cooper and Haig were separated by 3.1 seconds last time around, but this time it is 1.7 seconds between Alan Cooper and Bushell. So Bushell through a Mark Haig now. Ridley, Neil, Ball, Lee. So it's all the same inside the top 8, besides the change for second position between Alan Bushell and Mark Haig. So outside of the top 8 then, Paul Whitby and Jeff Moog having a good battle there. In fact, Paul Whitby, it's a 57.2 is his fastest, but Jeff Moog a 52.1. So Paul Whitby, it's not working for him at the moment, is it? No,
the wet bike hasn't come into its own at the moment. So it'll be interesting to find out what he was feeling out there on the track today. But yeah, that's a massive difference, isn't it? 5 seconds on that lap from Jeff to Paul.
That's it, and that's the kind of these inclement weather conditions really does bring up a little bit of a surprise there, doesn't it? As Jeff Moog looks to close the gap there. In fact, if he's going 5 seconds a lap quicker than Paul Whitby, then it, in theory, it wouldn't be too much of a challenge to find a way through if you're lapping 5 seconds quicker. But we'll watch them as they go in towards sector number 2 then. So the top 7 are through into sector number 2 now. But the only person to go personal best is Alan Cooper. Everybody else yellow in that first sector as Jeff Moog does find a way through on Paul Whitby, but into the chicane and out of the chicane now for Cooper. The gap was 1.7 seconds between him and Alan Bushell, and it seems to be hovering around that kind of gap still as Mark Haig late on the brakes there looks for an inside pass on Alan Bushell into the Melbourne Loop. No way through Tom Ridley keeping a watching brief on the two guys in front of them. But it is still Alan Bushell, number 6, who holds on to that advantage for second ahead of 110 Mark Haig. Of course, when we come across the line this time around, when Alan Cooper, that is, out of Goddard's now and crosses the line, there will be just 2 laps left. And 1.734 was the gap. That is Cooper and Bushell crossing the line is 1.321. So it has closed up just a little bit. And Cooper yet to go sub 1 minute 52, whereas the fastest person on that previous lap was Tom Ridley with a 51 flat.
Yeah, something happened with Alan Bushell coming out of Goddard's there. He got easily taken by Mark Hay, and I think maybe Tom may have taken him going into Redgate. So whether he missed a gear on the exit, I'm not too sure, but he definitely didn't have the drive he had been having earlier on in the race.
Work to do then is Paul Neild, 3.3 seconds behind Tom Ridley. That's maybe a little bit too much too late there, unfortunately, for the man 4th in the Clublands at the moment. But the 34 of Paul Neild having a good ride on that 34 bike. Damien Lee up next. David Ball in 7th position. That's 3rd in class then. McRae, Jeff Mook, Paul Whitby. So Jeff Mook did find a way through on Paul Whitby, who's now in the 58s on that previous lap there, unfortunately, for the man on bike number 74. But looking up towards Coppice once again, and it is Cooper who's gone purple in sector number 1. Haig has gone personal best in his pursuit of trying to close down that 1.3 second deficit between him and the race leader. Bushell, Ridley, Neild. That was the order as they came across the line, but as you said there, it looked as though that Tom Ridley found a way through on the number 6 of Alan Bushell into Redgate. That does appear to still be the case, as Tom Ridley, number 166, holds on to that 3rd place. Looks like they're coming up onto Stephen Wimble there, so top 1, 2, 3, 4 all through on the number 25.
Yeah, Alan Bushell's just made a move on Tom Ridley down into the hairpin, and he's come out, he's got good drive out, so obviously the issue that he had coming out of Goddard on that last lap is recovered from, and he's now chasing Mark into Goddard's.
So round we come then, Alan Cooper, then the last lap flag is now being shown. So we've got 2.5 miles left of this DFDS Yamaha PastMasters race, and the gap that was 1.3 is now opened up to 2.1 seconds as Alan Cooper puts in a 1 minute 50.213 on that previous lap. So before that lap it was a 1 minute 52 flat, 1 minute 52.1, and he saw that Mark Haig was catching up fairly quickly, and he puts in a 1 minute 50.213.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that what I'm loving about this at the moment is in the top 5, Alan Cooper is obviously from national rider, but 2nd, 3rd, 4th and 5th are all Clubman riders.
It's good to see there, isn't it? Damien Lee there, and Ball 2nd and 3rd of the national riders, as you said there, as Jeff Mook finds a way through on Max McRae, so 57 now ahead of the number 86. And Paul Whitby up next, rounding out the top 10 at the moment. He's going to personal best of a 1 minute 56.493, which is quicker than Patterson behind him there. So it could well be a relatively secure 10th place overall at the moment for Paul Whitby on that number 74 bike. As Alan Cooper, race leader, in yellow in sector number 1. But the quickest person in that first sector on this final lap is Tom Ridley, who came across the line in 4th position. So he's looking for that overall podium.
Yeah, no, it's going to be a good tussle for that podium behind Alan for sure. I think Bushell and Hay are quite well matched in this race today. And Alan's got a lot of experience as well. He's not just been racing IPM bikes; he's been racing many other things in former years. So we'll see how this works out.
Mark Haig went very defensive on the entrance in towards Melbourne Loop there. Alan Bushell couldn't find a way through, and I don't think he's close enough to make a challenge as they go in towards Goddard's for the final time. Is he? He's going to give it a go. I tell you what, he's gone well on the inside there. Does he outbrake himself? He goes out of sight momentarily as Alan Cooper comes across the line to take victory. Alan Bushell then up the inside of Mark Haig into Goddard's and does take 2nd position away from the 110 of Mark Haig. And then number 166, Tom Ridley, rounding out the top 4 with Damien Lee, bike number 26, just getting the better of Paul Neild at the end of that race. That's for 5th and 6th place. Jeff Mook up next in 7th on bike number 57. And then P8 for number 8, that's David Ball with a 56.3 on that final lap. But Jeff Mook there, Pete, a 149.8, the fastest lap of the race on that last lap.
Yeah, he definitely found the grip out there at some point, didn't he? I wonder why it took her to the last lap to find that.
He wouldn't have gone out there on risked it on slicks, would he?
No.